He didn't expect that night to change everything. Rain poured like tears from the sky as Daniel drove home from his late shift, exhausted and half lost in thought about how he'd make next month's rent. Then he saw her barefoot, soaked, no older than 7, standing by the roadside with her little arms wrapped around a stuffed bear. The world stopped for him in that moment. A single dad who'd once lost his own child to fate, now staring at a girl who looked just as broken as he once was. He pulled over, heart pounding. "Hey, sweetheart, are you okay? Where's your mom?" he asked, voice trembling with a gentleness that could only come from a man who'd known loss. The girl said nothing, only looked at him with wide, frightened eyes. Then, softly, she whispered, "I don't know. I can't find her." Daniel couldn't just drive away. He wrapped her in his jacket, brought her to his car, and called the police. They told him to wait for social services, but the little girl clung to his arm like he was her only safety. "Can I stay with you? Just for tonight?" she asked. And something inside Daniel, something buried deep since his wife died and his son drifted away, came alive again. He nodded that night, as he tucked her into his couch with a blanket. She finally said her name, Lila. She had dimples, a sweet laugh, and eyes too wise for her age. He noticed the bracelet on her wrist, delicate gold, engraved with the letter E. Expensive. Definitely not from an ordinary family. But Daniel didn't press her. She was safe, warm, and for the first time in a long time, his house didn't feel so empty. Over the next 2 days, Lila brightened. She helped him make pancakes, painted with his 6-year-old son Jacob, and asked endless questions about the world. Daniel saw the way Jacob smiled again, the way laughter filled his kitchen. It was like this little girl had brought sunlight into the cracks of their broken life. Then the doorbell rang. When he opened it, the air changed. Standing there was a woman in a soaked designer coat, her eyes wild and red from crying. She looked powerful, controlled, but broken at the same time. "I'm looking for my daughter," she said, voice trembling. "Her name is Lila." Daniel's heart froze. Lila peeked from behind him, gasped, and ran to the woman. "Mommy," she cried. The woman dropped to her knees, clutching her daughter like she might vanish. Tears streamed down her face as she whispered thank yous Daniel didn't know how to accept. He should have felt relief, but instead, something deep in his gut said this story wasn't done. The police confirmed the woman's identity, Evelyn Hart, billionaire CEO of a global company. A woman who'd been on every news channel for the last 48 hours, offering $500,000 for anyone who found her missing daughter. But when she turned to Daniel, her expression softened. "You didn't call for the reward," she said. "Why?" Daniel shrugged. "She's a kid. She needed help. That's all." Evelyn studied him for a long moment, as if trying to see into his soul. "You're not like most people," she said quietly. Then she glanced at his small house, at Jacob playing inside. Something flickered in her eyes, nostalgia, maybe even regret. Before leaving, she handed him her card. "If you ever need anything, call me," she said. Anything. Days passed, and Daniel tried to move on. But something about Evelyn stayed in his mind, the sadness behind her eyes, the way she'd held Lila like she'd almost lost herself too. Then one night, his phone rang. It was Evelyn. Her voice was tight, shaky. "Can we meet? It's about Lila. About you." He didn't understand, but he went. Evelyn met him at a quiet restaurant. No bodyguards, no assistants, just her, sitting in a corner with that same look of pain. When Daniel sat down, she took a deep breath. "I didn't just come to thank you," she said. "There's something you need to know." She slid a photograph across the table. It was old, worn, but Daniel recognized the woman instantly, his late wife, Emily. And beside her was Evelyn. "I knew your wife," Evelyn said softly. "Years ago, before you two were married. She worked for me. And what I didn't know, until now, is that she was pregnant when she left." Daniel's stomach dropped. "What are you saying?" Evelyn's voice cracked. "Lila, she's your daughter, Daniel." The world spun. He gripped the table, heart pounding in disbelief. His wife had died in an accident when Jacob was 2. How could this be true? Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. Emily and I were best friends. She was like a sister to me. When she found out she was pregnant again, she was scared. You were struggling, and she didn't want to burden you. She told me she'd handle it alone. But after the accident, the baby survived. I adopted her. I didn't tell anyone. I raised her as my own. Silence filled the space between them. Daniel couldn't breathe. His mind flashed with every smile Lila gave him, every familiar look, her laugh, her dimples, the way she tilted her head just like Emily used to. She's mine, he whispered. Evelyn nodded, tears spilling. Yes. I didn't mean to keep her from you. I thought I was doing what was best. But when she disappeared and you found her, it felt like fate was correcting my mistake. Daniel looked away, torn between gratitude and anger, between love and shock. So what now? He asked. Evelyn reached across the table, trembling. Now, maybe we do what's right. Lila deserves both her parents, both her families. I don't want to take her from you. But I can't lose her either. The weeks that followed were heavy but healing. They talked, they met often, and slowly, two worlds so different yet bound by one child began to merge. Lila spent weekends with Daniel and Jacob, learning to bake cookies and play soccer in the yard. Evelyn joined sometimes, sitting quietly, watching laughter fill spaces she hadn't heard in years. In the end, there were no perfect answers. But there was something stronger than pain: understanding, forgiveness, and love reborn from Lost Point. One afternoon, as the sun set behind Daniel's small home, Lila ran across the yard, giggling. Evelyn and Daniel stood side by side, watching her. She looks like Emily, Evelyn whispered. Daniel smiled faintly. She looks like hope. And in that moment, two hearts, once broken by different tragedies, finally found peace in the same place they'd both lost it. The past couldn't be undone, but the future could be rewritten. Sometimes, the family you lose finds its way back in ways you never expect.